Hotspot, Ireland. The first shots in the financial war were fired here nearly 3 years ago, when the Irish government guaranteed all the debts of the entire Irish banking system. Most of those bad debts belong to just one bank, Anglo-Irish. Today, 2 years later, the Irish government, the Irish people, have been bailed out with 85 billion euros from the EU and the IMF.
Ireland will receive a massive bailout of over $100 billion from the European Union and International Monetary.
Let's cut to the chase, right? Ireland has not been bailed out. I am not being bailed out. My children are not being bailed out. The people who are being bailed out by this deal are the very delinquent bankers that lent and gambled on the reputations of Sean Fitzpatrick, of Anglo-Irish Bank, of AIB, of Bank of Ireland. They've nothing to do with me. In actual fact, I've never been inside the foyer of Anglo-Irish Bank, and yet I'm expected to pay taxes for the next possibly 20 years to pay off loans that that bank gave out to developers to build their crazy dreams around this city, loans that were originally financed by European banks. I mean, this is just a joke.
Anglo-Irish. Here's the carcass of what would have been its Dublin headquarters.
Socialist Joe Higgins is a member of the European Parliament. He says this is a dark day in Irish history.
The IMF and the European Central Bank are acting as agents for international speculators in the financial markets in demanding that the Irish working class pay for the tens of billions that these speculators gambled in property deals in Ireland.
Well, Ireland suffered. I said this back in 2003, it's a long time ago, that Ireland was experiencing a coup d'etat, which an unholy alliance of the government, which was getting 28% of the cost of every new house in taxation, plus the developers, who were making a fortune buying up land, and the banks. This triumvirate had orchestrated a coup d'etat, a financial coup d'etat in the country.
Before there was bailout, there was bacchanalia, an orgy of speculation and tax evasion, and the heart of it was here at the IFSC, the International Finance Services Center, home to half of the world's major banks.
Welcome to the war zone, yeah. This is it. This is ground zero.
Incredible. Let's talk about what's been going on. I am struck, of course, by the IFSC right over there. There's the headquarters.
This is basically where the Celtic tiger was born and where it died. This is what's been going on here, is effectively tax laundering. And of course we benefited. Ireland has probably the biggest disparity between GNP and GDP of any country in the world because of tax laundering here in the IFSC. I'll give you an idea of just how huge this entity is to the Irish economy. 600 billion euro churned through there last year. So really the Irish economy is sort of like the pimple on the IFSC economy.
Right. And what we're talking about here in this financial war is that the weapons used to decimate the population are financial products, tax arbitrage, tax evasion, and other cooperation with the lawyers and the bankers and the fund managers, all colluding really to decimate the economy. Hey, Paul.
Hey, Max, how are you?
Great to see you.
Yeah, likewise, man.
All right, we are Change Dublin, right? Yeah, there's an idea that the country has so much debt, 6 or 7 times the GDP in debt, and of course managing that debt becomes a huge profit center itself. And if the government and the entrenched kleptocracy, as some call it, are working to manage this debt, they're making huge fees, and this has become the primary source of revenues for this elite class.
As far as I'm concerned, the debt that this country is in now is not responsible of the people of the country. It's the people in there who are responsible. They're the ones who signed the contract, so as far as I'm concerned, they're liable. They're the only ones who can be liable. It's not the people of Ireland.
But the people of Ireland were made liable. Through the creation of NAMA, the National Asset Management Agency, the Irish government transferred the bad debts of the private banks onto the public balance sheet. This is the Treasury. This is the home of NAMA, one of the biggest wartime slush funds ever created.
And he's angry. There's 5 million people in this country. Come on, Ireland, for Jesus' sake, get out of fight.
And I said back then it would lead to, obviously, the property market would collapse at some stage, and the banks would collapse, and there would be severe negative equity for a certain generation.
35,000 mortgage holders in Ireland are in negative equity.
But what we have happening is, because of the loss of jobs, because of the heightening of taxes, all of these pressures, the cuts in the public sector wages, there's at least another 150,000 people likely to fall into negative equity to the extent that they can't actually pay for them. I mean, there are pretty much every house that's been bought since about 2005 is now in negative equity, depending on how much people have paid since. But people's ability to pay is the problem. And as I say, we've 35,000 already over their neck in trouble, and another 100,000 likely to end up there within the next year or two.
Right, and leaving the city, you've got, in the exurbs, you have what are now ghost towns.
The ghost estates.
The ghost estate. Talk to me about the ghost estates.
This is Namaland. This is where the Celtic tiger dies.
Namaland or Vietnamaland?
Well, this is it. You know, it's another war full of casualties. This is one of the many ghost estates here in Ireland. They're scattered all over the country, predominantly in the exurbs and the counties, commuter counties surrounding Dublin. Over 300,000 excess homes were built during the Celtic Tiger era that can never be occupied.
300,000.
300,000,
Right.
for a population of 4.5 million.
And the prognosis is abandonment, possibly tear down.
Well, exactly, but the problem is that they have been given a notional value and rolled into NAMA, and the banks are now going to be paid for them.
Right.
Thereby bailing out the property developers and bailing out the banks, again at the expense of the Irish taxpayer.
So this bank bailout just rolls on and on and on.
This is it. NAMA was the first bailout of the property developers. Now we've got the bailout of the banks and their bondholders. What could come next is the bailout of the IFSC insurance companies. We're on the hook for that. If one of those goes, that's another 65 billion. So currently we're talking about a per capita debt of €170,000 per person.
Is it true that a lot of people are actually experiencing combat shock? That the speed of this collapse is so great that it's not just a matter... Go ahead, sir.
There's a wish here. It's irrational, but it's like, we'll get better. If we just do what we're told, we'll take our medicine, it will get better, and it'll all go back to the boom. And it's an illusion, and it's fostered by the media. There's no papers saying anything. It is just, you know, it's this, it'll be all over by Christmas. Just take your medicine, be good little Europeans, and that's it. And I don't think it's going to get better. It needs to get worse before there's any change. The middle classes are holding out. They want redemption. They think it's going to get better. How we pull back the curtain, sort of in a Wizard of Oz sort of manner, I don't know how, but that's where we're at the moment, and people are buying into they bought into the illusion in the first place. They're not going to give it up. No one wants to admit they were wrong. No one wants to admit that their house is now worth buttons.
This denial might have something to do with Ireland's bankruptcy laws.
So you can be sent to jail, and every year people are sent to jail. I think nearly 300 people were sent to jail for defaulted debt last year alone. Now, when you have that situation, you have that allied to the fact that you can't just, for example, if you're in negative equity in your mortgage, you can't just post the keys back and walk away. The debt is not expunged. You can still be jailed for that debt, even though you've given them back the house.
So during the Victorian period, the poor houses, the dead houses, the dead
Exactly.
house, these laws are still on the books here.
Pretty much. They've barely been updated.
And the foreclosures that are happening as a result of these bankers and these lawyers and these tax arbitrageurs and tax evaders are causing these people to go into foreclosure and into jail as a result of their...
Well, currently we have a moratorium on foreclosing on houses. That's not going to last for much longer. Let me tell you something that we used to have in this country back around the time of the famine. We had what was called
there's of course the famine ship.
There's the Jeannie Johnson, the ship that took people, the coffin ship that took people off to North America. And in the days of the Jeannie Johnson, people would have what they call the emigration wake. because your family member is going to North America, you're never going to see them again. They're not going to make the money to come back and say hi, you know, there's no airplanes. So it was a wake. They're dead to you now, they're gone. And what you have right now, happening all over again 150 years later, is you have people who are in debt, in huge negative equity of their homes. They can't afford to pay it back, but if they don't pay it back, they'll go to jail. So now they're going to Australia, North America, Britain, for a new life, for a new start, but they can never come back. There's more emigration wakes happening for the first time in over a century.
The IMF and the European Union Commission are not here as friends of the Irish people.